Before I begin, I have a question for you. Who here is a migrant? Raise your hand. Okay, I see maybe 4 hands. Okay, great. Then I have a few more questions for you. Who has lived abroad and worked? Raise your hand. Oh, okay. Who has studied abroad? Who has moved within your own country? And finally, who has traveled abroad? Okay. So there's quite a few more hands now than when I asked my first question. So the question is, who is a migrant? Let's review the definition. According to the Oxford Dictionary, a migrant is a person that moves from one place to another for work or better living conditions. Work and better living conditions can be anything that improves life. Better education, new chances, safety, adventure, sun, or love. The definition says nothing over duration or borders. It can be within or outside your country. And it can be permanently or for a very short time. So, as we can see here, we're all migrants or descendants of migrants. So why are we then so hesitant to label ourselves as a migrant? This is a question that I spent years asking myself. My full name is Ingi Mehus, and I come from Norway. I got my typical Norwegian name when I was 4 months old. I was just being adopted from Korea. When I was 5 years old, I moved within Norway with my new and blonde family. And when I was 19 years old, I myself moved to Australia as a work and holiday backpacker. And I came back later as an international student. There, I fell in love with a Dutchie. After Australia, I lived a so-called expat life in Indonesia and Tajikistan, next to Afghanistan, where I worked with international migration for the UN. Finally, I came here to the Netherlands as a love migrant. And that sounds pretty cute, or a little bit creepy. And that is the problem with migration labels. They evoke different reactions. For years, I spent a lot of effort trying to reject my label as an adoptee. I didn't like the pity or the sympathy that I got. Instead, I embraced the label as a backpacker, international student, and of course, expat. Every place where I've traveled to or lived has been part of shaping the person that I am today. But I am more than these migration labels. Every label or stereotype, for instance, your sports club, religious or political affiliation, migration labels, they tell an incomplete story of who we are as human beings. We typically view migrants either somebody that we pity or that we despise, victims or criminals, good or bad. But nobody is fully good or bad. So, I was pretty dissatisfied with the global narratives of migration. I therefore founded the Pocket Stories Foundation. Pocket Stories connect people through storytelling to better understand what migration and diversity is. And this was a great way for me to get to know my new home country. And with a team, I traveled through every province of the Netherlands to collect very different migration stories and gain insight in who are the Dutch really. All of these stories are being gathered into a new travel guidebook about the Netherlands, Roots Guide. And in Roots Guide, the reader gets to discover the impressive diversity of the Netherlands through a personal and interactive journey, both through the present, but also the past. And what I particularly love about migration stories is that they illustrate how we're all interconnected through space and time. The Dutch Queen, she's Argentinian. Sinterklaas, he comes from Turkey. And your beloved cheese slicer, your cheese slicer comes from Norway. Migration stimulates innovation, exploration, and collaboration. And yes, it of course causes conflict too. But let's be honest, we humans, we fight about everything. We particularly fight when we encounter the unknown. The unknown can be scary. But if we avoid all the unknown, there'd be so many things that we would miss. Imagine our ancestor from Africa that just hang around and be scared of the world. Well, then we would have no Netherlands, no pizza, and no TEDx talks. We humans were migrants long before we invented borders and nation states. We're all migrants by nature. It has been almost 5 years since I moved to the Netherlands. And I still get so surprised when I meet new people and places here in the Netherlands, because it's such a small, flat country. And when I do, I fall in love with the Netherlands all over again. And I have this deep gratitude to every single person that opened up their stories to me and had the curiosity to listen to mine. This has made me feel at home here in the Netherlands. And that is why I am here today, to invite you all to rediscover the people and places within your own country, but also yourself. How are you connected to migration? And what are your roots? Let's not be scared, but curious. Thank you.